So I just got done with a really long session of the new DLC for God of War Ragnarok Valhalla, the roguelike DLC that was announced at the Game Awards and we've all been waiting for, and I have a lot to say about it, and that's why this video couldn't wait for tomorrow, even though I played just a shitload and I'm really tired. But if you're a fan of these games, especially the old ones, then you can't afford to miss this DLC and you have to hear about it. Before I get into explaining, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, do the YouTube stuff. It is very much appreciated, and let's start with a really quick summary of the DLC. So it starts with you on a boat with Mimir arriving at the shores of Valhalla. You get a nice little story introduction with some talk and some characters and some warming up for the combat, and then you're pushed into the roguelike system. And that doesn't go anywhere new or anywhere innovative in my opinion. It's just like any other roguelike, and if you don't have a problem with that, then this DLC is gonna be right up your alley. You go into an area, fight some people, get some loot, go in a specific direction with your character and build. Then you have a little rest area and more fighting, then more rest area, then more fighting, and then a boss fight, and you move on from there. Just like any other roguelike that you played in your life, this is just like it. And just like any other roguelike, every time you die, you get to upgrade some specific parts of your build. Every time you're in the run, you can upgrade other parts of the build. You get it, it's just like any other game that you played in this genre. It's the same rules that you already know, but it is really deep, and I do appreciate the variety that you can have in this roguelike mode that is added on top of the single player game. So, we broke down the DLC and how the gameplay goes. Now let's get into the bad part, because I like to get the bad over with first. Let's start with my main issue of this DLC, and that is that it's overwhelming at first, and it took me a little bit of a time to get used and get to the grip of with this DLC of what I have to do and just comprehend the stuff, because there's a lot of new mechanics in it. The other thing that I didn't like is just how it's integrated into the game. That's the biggest problem by far, and that I have to play it through the main menu. It's not in the single player campaign. I really expected to have this as part of the story in the game and the campaign of the game, so that you can go whenever you want, do your Valhalla roguelike thing, and then go back to the story with your new loot or something like that, like it was in the first game with that one realm that was basically a roguelike. I expected that, but more in depth. This is not it. It's more in depth than the first game, but this is a specific mode that you cannot access during the campaign. And that is a really big downside for me, because it means that this DLC is basically just isolated. It's not part of the game. Whatever you get in this DLC stays in the DLC. You can't carry it over to the main story. And that's a big issue for me. If it's not for you, then it's gonna be fine. And my last issue is the roguelike element itself. The game has a lot of story in it. This DLC has a lot of big revelations that I like, and I really think that going with the roguelike route was kind of a disappointment, because I would have rather had like a DLC that's set in Valhalla, which happens to have the same story beats of this DLC, but without the roguelike element. I get that it's good for replayability, it's fun, I do like it, but for this story purpose, I would have liked to have a normal DLC with a new location, new enemies, and new stuff to do. So that's my last concern with this DLC and the last downside with it. And now let's get to the good part. First of all, the story. If you're a fan of the old games, then you have to play this DLC. I would even go as far as saying that you have an obligation to play this DLC, because it really solves a lot of the stuff that we carried over from the Greek saga into the Norse one, and it does connect both of them in a really nice way. We do get some really nice things that I really don't want to spoil, so I'm sorry if I sound a little weird talking about it, but there are amazing things that happen in this DLC that I really think old fans like myself will really enjoy, because I just genuinely loved it. Story-wise, this DLC is amazing, has a lot more story than I expected from a roguelike and from a DLC in general. This is a free DLC. You don't have to pay for it. And I really didn't expect it to have this much story. And it does have a lot with some major things in it. It's not like a normal story that doesn't affect anything. It does affect the world, and it does affect Kratos and his story, and this is a really nice conclusion to Ragnarok. That's what this DLC is all about, concluding the Norse and the Greek saga for Kratos and setting up the future from here. The second thing in the good part is the design of the DLC when it comes to graphics, music, movement, and combat. It's all just top tier, just like Ragnarok and just like God of War 2018 before it. This DLC has some really mind-blowing locations, which yes, they are inspired by the main game, but they are remixed with things that I don't want to spoil. But it is really, really good looking, and the music is really top tier too. I'm pretty sure we have some returning music from the old games and from the main game, and some new tracks as well. Don't quote me on that, but we do have really good music that I didn't hear before in this game. And it's really well used, the graphics are amazing, the gameplay is, of course, obviously it's God of War, so the gameplay is really, really top tier. Basically, what I mean with this point is that the presentation of this DLC is just out of this world, looks great, sounds great, feels great, everything you need, and it's just like God of War before it. It's amazing to look at, it's amazing to admire. And last but not least, I just want to say that the roguelike gameplay loop is really more fun than I expected. It's right, I don't like roguelikes, it's true, but I do appreciate the gameplay variety in this DLC. The gameplay loop really is well made, and it does incentivize you to go back and do more runs, because each run is really different. That is always my biggest fear with roguelikes, that every run is gonna be similar to the last one. With this DLC, it's really does a really good job at keeping things spicy and changing the enemies and the bosses. The boss fights are great, the enemies are great, and there are some really amazing enemies that I don't want to spoil, and you're gonna be mind blown if you play against them. That's why I'm telling you that you have to try this DLC if you're an old fan and if you're a new fan as well. So as my closing off points, this DLC is really great, it's free, so you have literally nothing to lose if you want to play it. I don't think it's worth buying the game for the DLC, but if you already have the game, and to be fair, the game is already amazing by itself, so I would recommend buying it anyway. But if you already have the game, you have literally zero reason not to try this DLC, because it will really give you a lot more to do. And it's genuinely amazing, and it's free, and it does a lot to satisfy the old fans of the series. You really have to try it. I'm really impressed by it, and I'm really excited for what it sets up for the future of Kratos and the whole just God of War universe in general. I'm really glad that this DLC exists, and I really cannot wait to hear what you think about it when you do get to play it. For now, that's all I had to say about it. Go try it. It's free, have fun, come back to the video then, let me know what you think about it, and yeah. That's it for now. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe. Like always, I talk about open world games in general. That's kind of my deal. So check the channel, like the videos, do the YouTube things, share, like, subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.